Alrighty, so here we go. It is time to do the last episode of the Moving Forward series for this season. And usually, when we get to the last episode of the Moving Forward series, we talk about the MLS Cup champion. And this year, it is NYCFC winning their first ever MLS Cup in only their 5th year in existence. But if you ask any NYCFC fan, it felt like it's been a long time coming with all the playoff fatigue they suffer in past season. And this is finally the year where they finally beat the narrative of the fact that they're always labeled as a choker team, a team that just cannot get past the second round. And not only the fact that they were able to finally break that curse, but they went on all the way to winning MLS Cup this season. And when I look at this team, I didn't think that this was the team to do it. I mean, this team wasn't as strong as an NYCFC team that I remember when they went on to finish first in the Eastern Conference. And you got to also remember, when you look at most of the players on this team, they're still kind of part of the core of players that just always tends to fail in the playoffs. And not to mention in the middle of the season when they lost pretty much their most important piece and their captain in Anton Tinnerholm, I thought they were done. I thought there was no way that they were going to recover. And the fact that they also went on that brutal little stretch where they just could not score whatsoever, and they were all the way down to being at 1 point outside the playoff line. It looked like NYCFC was having their annual collapse a little bit earlier than the usual annual collapse that we see when they get into the playoffs. But somehow they get on a good run near the end of the season. And how many times we've said that when you go on a good run at the end of the season, you're always going to be the most difficult team to have to handle, and you're going to always have a chance to ride that momentum and win MLS Cup. But overall, in terms of regular season, they finished with a 14-9-11 record and finished with 51 points. They scored 56 goals while conceding 36 goals with a goal differential of plus 20. They finished 4th in the Eastern Conference, but most importantly, they won MLS Cup 2021 over the Portland Timbers. Top goal scorer, we got the Golden Boot winner, Tati Castellanos, who, by the way, he is still with this team as of now, though, there's been just so much rumor of him potentially moving on from this club, either going down to South America or going down to Europe, that I won't be surprised he might be sold off in these upcoming weeks. I mean, I will say that I am maybe a little surprised the fact that Tati Castellanos still haven't been sold off to another club. And usually when it gets to this point where you expect a player to move on to another team and he hasn't able to do, you just wonder, maybe he's actually going to be staying with NYCFC. And I don't know how Tati Castellanos is going to feel like. I mean, on one hand, it's good the fact that he gets to come back to a team that this next season they're going to be once again competing, and especially compete for that CONCACAF Champions League title, become the first MLS team to do so. But on the other, it's kind of a little bit discouraging that you did everything you could to make a big move to Europe, and now you're basically back in that team too. But he finished with 19 goals this season, winning the Golden Boot, followed by Jesus Medina, who is a player that have already moved to Europe after he decided to go to CSKA Moscow with 9 goals. Then you got another player that also moved on from NYCFC, that is Ishmael Tajiri-Shradi, and was part of kind of that expansion kind of draft deal. Well, he wasn't paying the expansion draft, but Charlotte basically kind of shipped him off to LAFC, and basically sadly that of course the case. But he finished with 7 goals this season, followed by Thiago Andrade with 4 goals, Keaton Parks with 4 goals to round out the top 5 list. Top assist leader, unsurprisingly, Maxi Morales, who no doubt had an incredible year, especially in the playoffs. And really, he pretty much just kind of symbolized what NYCFC was this season. A team that has always suffered some playoff fatigue and always choke in the biggest moment. And that's kind of the same thing with Maxi Morales. I mean, as good as he is, in the biggest moment, he always tends to not show up. And boy, that was never the case in this season playoffs. Like, he showed up in big moments and really kind of almost exercising the demons, and what him label as a player that just never able to step up when it matters the most. But he finished with 11 assists, followed by Tati Castellanos, who not only won the Golden Boot, but he actually was also a guy that can be a playmaker too. Finished with 8 assists this season. Then you got Anton Tinnerholm with 5 assists, Jesus Medina with 4 assists, and Alfredo Morales with 4 assists to round up the top 5 assist leader for NYCFC. So to their road to winning MLS Cup, so this is something that is a little bit different than I usually do in Moving Forward series, where I talk about what went right, what went wrong, and moving forward. I mean, I could talk about what went right, and the easiest thing to say that went right for NYCFC is winning MLS Cup. And obviously, I'm not going to go with the what went wrong because, I know there were still things that kind of went wrong with this team, and one thing that definitely went wrong is what happened in September when they went on that miserable run where they just could not score a goal and looked like they would collapse earlier than they usually do. But, when you win MLS Cup, you don't worry about what went wrong in terms of this season. Like, anytime when you win MLS Cup, it is always going to be considered a successful season. But their road to winning MLS Cup, they finished the season as the 4th seed in the East. They had a chance to maybe finish as high as 2nd place, but they did have to settle as the 4th seed. They won 2-0 in their first playoff game against Atlanta United in the first round, and I'm not going to lie, that was a game that I thought NYCFC could potentially lose, and that I also said that game was probably one of the popular upset pick in terms of the way that Atlanta United, we know that this is a team that I was kind of surprised that they were being once again oversaturated by the media, saying that they're going to do a good run, but more like a team that was kind of flying under the radar a little bit and can definitely be dangerous in the playoffs, knowing their playoff experience. And NYCFC basically dispatched them in the first round. Now, granted, I also will say that if you go look at the history between NYCFC versus Atlanta United, it's not a great matchup for Atlanta. I mean, they have not had any success with NYCFC, especially when they play the game at Yankee Stadium. But that being said, in the playoffs, history doesn't really matter. It's all about what happened in the game. And in this case, is one of the time where history was proven right in the playoffs, where NYCFC continued their dominance over Atlanta United at Yankee Stadium by winning 2-0. And then the very next game, they play against New England. And again, I know this is where we get to a point where there's going to be some naysayer. And I think even after winning MLS Cup, I know there's still going to be some naysayers say, well, yeah, yes, NYCFC won MLS Cup, but did you look at the run that they had in the playoffs and how much they got a lot of benefit for them with the way that they play against a Revs team that basically had a long layoff and they also kind of had all the momentum after the game against Atlanta. Well, here's the thing: at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter how it works. Like when you of course play in a playoff game, no matter how the circumstances, whether it benefit or hurt you, you want to still able to put that aside and move on into the next round. And in this case, they kind of took advantage of that against the Revs, and in some way they should have won that game in regular time. I mean, that game should have never went to a PK shootout if NYCFC kind of had some choking moment, especially I think when they gave up the equalizer in the 117th minute against New England. I thought this was it. I thought NYCFC was going to bounce out, and especially their history with the PK shootout, which that's another thing that I think a lot of people haven't mentioned, of the fact that besides NYCFC finally exercise their demons and finally break the curse of them not moving past the second round, but they finally break the curse in terms of the PK shootout, and that I think that embarrassment that we saw last year against Orlando City in the PK shootout is probably all forgotten because of what they did this year, and especially in the PK shootout this season. Heck, you know that they broke the PK shootout curse when Maxi Morales can score goals in the PK shootout. Like the fact that in both of the PK shootout he actually was able to score a goal, and I've always labeled Maxi Morales as probably the worst PK taker in this league, and the fact that he scored just pretty much kind of sums up the fact that maybe something's gonna special that can happen to this NYCFC team, and that they finally can do something that not only breaks the curse but also end all narrative and went on to win the whole thing. But the very next round, they of course won 2-1 against the Philadelphia Union, and again, a lot of naysayers that's gonna say, well, the Union, they had pretty much all half of their roster being infected by COVID. But again, you basically it's not NYCFC fault that the Union got like to face a team that basically is going through a COVID outbreak, and in some ways that was a game where they could have easily lost that one, because I thought the Union were the better team in that game, but they were able to pull out, and especially getting that late winner in the 87th minute was reason why they were able to move on to MLS Cup. And then in that MLS Cup against the Portland Timbers, and the fact that I think that was a game where they were also kind of considered the underdog, because they thought that this is the time for the Timbers to not only finally get a chance to play a home MLS Cup game, which all Timbers fans must have dreamed of that ever since they become a fan of this team. But it looks like the feel good story is going to conclude with the Timbers winning MLS Cup, and the fact that NYCFC, even though they were up 1-0 for majority of the game, when they gave up that late equalizer, I thought it was over for NYCFC. I mean, that momentum shift, and you saw in extra time too, where there was time where the Timbers could have got that second goal and basically win it in extra time, as NYCFC was just completely shell shocked of how they are still playing after giving up that late goal. But you got to give credit to this team, despite being shell shocked, once again able to come back in the PK shootout, just not only physically but mentally in some way, to win 4-2 against the Timbers, and a team that is known to do well in PK shootout. So the keys to winning MLS Cup in 2021, obviously, I mentioned many times before of the fact that they really kind of defeat every single narrative of this team, of why this team will never win an MLS Cup this season. But the other key things that for them to winning MLS Cup, obviously Tati Castellanos being the most lethal goal scorer in MLS, and there was time when he was really hot. He was the go-to guy to score those goals, and he of course also score again in MLS Cup, which is not a big surprise, because if there is one guy I would thought NYCFC is gonna score in MLS Cup, it is gonna be Tati Castellanos, which that was the case. And then Maxi Morales with a monster playoff performance, finally showing up, and finally there's always been that question of the fact that have Maxi Morales kind of got past his prime. I mean, he is starting to get into his mid-30s, and some people thought that he doesn't have the legs to do it, especially with the injury the crisis that he's been suffering for the past couple of seasons. Nope, it seems like he is still the Maxi Morales that we know from a couple of years ago, and he definitely showed that in that playoff performance, just an incredible playmaker, and also scoring some big goals too, like in that game against the Philadelphia Union to tie the game up after they went down 1-0 just two minutes ago. And then of course finally breaking the MLS Cup playoff curse. I've of course mentioned that many times, and then getting in good form at the right time. Again, this is a team that heading into the playoffs, not many people realize that they were actually in a relatively good form, and I think they won 5 out of their last 6 games to come into the playoffs. And how many times we have heard this cliche: when you get into the playoffs hot, you can definitely go deep into the playoffs, and that of course is the case in this case for NYCFC. And then finally, the other thing that I kind of haven't mentioned a lot is the backline, and the goalkeeping was amazing for this team. I mean, Sean Johnson, I think this playoffs kind of proves that, yeah, he definitely belongs in the U.S. men's national team picture. I mean, I know for a long time there's been a lot of people that has been kind of criticized the fact that Sean Johnson is still in the U.S. men's national team picture, and that there's no doubt that a lot of U.S. fans and even some MLS fans saying there's definitely more better option than what Sean Johnson has in terms of one of the spot in the goalkeeper department of this U.S. men's national team roster. But in this playoffs, he shows why he definitely belongs in that. And I will also say that, this season for Sean Johnson, it's been kind of up and down in some ways. I mean, he has had some good moments, and then he also had some bad moments, especially in the regular season, where there's a couple of times where he just commits so many goalkeeping howler. And I think that's also where the criticism kind of started to come from U.S. men's national team fan and even some MLS fans of how is a guy that has sometimes looked like the worst goalkeeper in the league still ends up to be in the national team conversation. But like I said, in the playoffs, he was absolutely stellar, and the same goes with that back line too. And again, even without Anton Tinholm, they still look really rock solid in the back line. And I think throughout the playoffs, I think they've only conceded 3 goals throughout the 4 games that they play in the playoffs. Like, that is an absolute rock solid job by this NYCFC defense, which there were some question about this defense coming into the playoffs too, whether they can be rock solid, and they definitely show that in this postseason. So moving forward for this NYCFC team after winning MLS Cup, well, the big thing that it's been on everybody's mind when we talk about NYCFC is the fact that when are they going to sell Tati Castellanos and how much they're going to receive. Like, there's just been so much rumor of him moving away, but he's still an NYCFC player, and if he is still an NYCFC player on opening day, I know some people will be a little bit surprised, but I guess maybe NYCFC is just waiting until the summer transfer window, and that, the summer is usually the time when these big European team tends to splash out the cash to get some of these players. But then again, the one of the thing that is kind of a little bit tricky with the summer transfer window is that it's kind of in the middle of the season, and do you really want to lose potentially your best player in the middle of the season if you're in a good position to compete for another MLS Cup? And then not to mention the fact that if NYCFC does keep Tati Castellanos, like, I don't know if there's any more upside or any more ways that he can up his transfer fees. I mean, he's already won the Golden Boot last year, so I don't know if there's anything he needs to do to really up his transfer fee. And then also you have the dangers of what happened if he does get an injury during the season. I mean, we saw this with Daryl DK, where I know Daryl DK eventually did sold off for a good amount of money, but it could have been a lot more if he didn't suffer those injuries. And that, I feel like Orlando City kind of hold on to Daryl DK a little bit too long, and that they probably could have sold him once he had that incredible run with Barnsley, instead of maybe keeping him and of course eventually his value did get demoted a little bit because of the injury issue and having some problem in terms of coming back from the injury issue and performing at that high level. Can Santi Rodriguez, Talis Magno, and I'll even throw in Thiago Andrade, can they be the key players to continue the success of this NYCFC attack? So there's no doubt that when you look at some of the moves that NYCFC had made in the past year, they've already started thinking about the future. They've already started thinking about building a nice, decent core that can replace some of the aging core, and even in the case of Tati Castellanos potentially moving on, they're thinking that most likely they already have a replacement within. I think Santi Rodriguez may be one of those players, though I don't think he's actually a true number 9. But yeah, it's great to see that this team has already have plan in terms of replacing some of these guys. Actually, I think I was saying that I think it's either Thiago or Talis Magno that is the one that potentially could replace Tati Castellanos in that number 9 spot. But it's just good to see that this team has already thought about the future, and that even if they do lose their most important player, they know that they've already got some good player on the depth chart that can easily replace them. But it'll be interesting to see how they're going to do. And remember, they pay a lot of big money to get these guys, so they better hope that they could succeed like the current core that they of course has. Otherwise, it could be a bad signing that they had. And when you look at this NYCFC team, I got to give it a lot of credit to their scouting the department, and I've always said that this is probably one, if not the best scouting department team out of MLS. I mean, it helps the fact that you're owned by City Football Group, and CFG tends to have a world-class kind of scouting department to get some good talent for your team. But the fact that even if that's the case, you still need to, of course, get it right. And so many times they have got it right in terms of finding players that are hidden gems, and hope that they, of course, would be the case. Though I will also say another thing, the fact that another guy that I could think maybe could potentially replace Tati Castellanos in that number 9 spot is Abear. And you remember Abear of how he had that incredible first season, and then he kind of was snake bit before going for a torn ACL injury, and he didn't also start still having some issue in terms of trying to come back to full health. But if he can once again get going, then that's a perfect replacement for Tati Castellanos when they decide to set him off. And then finally, the last thing about this team moving forward, and this is basically an annual tradition of me every time when I talk about NYCFC in the moving forward series, I have to talk about the stadium issue. I mean, again, I don't want to talk about it every single year, but I kind of have to, because it's kind of getting out of hand with the way that we heard this year they're going to be not only being played at Yankee Stadium, but they're going to be playing at Citi Field. They're also going to be playing one game at Red Bull Arena, and then we also heard that they're going to be playing their CCL game at Bank of California Stadium. Like, if they actually had a stadium ready in New York and had a soccer specific stadium, these would not be actually a factor. And the fact that it is still kind of a factor, it's not only frustrating if you're an NYCFC player not able to really kind of call a stadium your home, because you're basically playing all around the New York area, or in the case in CCL, you're basically literally playing in a neutral ground. But it's also frustrating for the fans too. Like, you want, if you're a fan, you don't want to, of course, watch your team in different stadiums. You want to able to watch a stadium that you can easily say that this is your home and you enjoy watching it. And I think for NYCFC fan, they just have not had that luxury. I mean, someone might say Yankee Stadium is kind of that place, but let's be honest, Yankee Stadium is definitely not a place that any NYCFC fans want to see their team play. I mean, have you seen how bad the soccer dimension and how bad the field line is? And also, not to mention, even as an average neutral, there's a reason why everybody hate whenever they have to watch a national televised game and its play at Yankee Stadium, because the sight line is absolutely atrocious, and not to mention those kind of wires that you see throughout. It's just a bad look in terms of a game that is national broadcast there. So again, I really hope eventually they'll figure this out, because again, let's face it, a team like this, which is considered one of the best teams in the league, should not have to have this issue of being just so hated. And just throughout, I think throughout the time, it seems like right now, if you want to talk about the memes of NYCFC, their memes isn't really just because of just the playoff fatigue that they had. Well, now that of course it's defeated after they win MLS Cup, but the memes is going to continue with the whole baseball stadium and the jokes about them continue to be playing at baseball stadium, and also just being a team that just doesn't even have a home stadium, being kind of a wanderer kind of team. But either way, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys see a like, smash the subscribe button. Let me know in the comments below what do you think of this video, and if you're an NYCFC fan, let me know in the comments below. Moving forward, how is this team going to look, and are they going to be a team that potentially could be defending their MLS Cup champion? Remember, it's been a while since we have had a team that is able to win back-to-back MLS Cup before. I mean, I think the last time a team that have won back-to-back MLS Cup, I think it was the Galaxy that did it in the early 2010s. But repeating as MLS Cup champion is extremely hard, and it doesn't happen been often in the league, especially with the parity that has been given in the league nowadays. So it's going to be interesting to see how they're going to do next season. I do believe that they're going to be a team that, I don't think they're going to have the MLS Cup hangover. I mean, we talk about Columbus that had that MLS Cup hangover from this season. I don't think this team will be. I mean, this team is just too good to have that MLS Cup hangover, and especially that they are going to get some key guys back from injury. And if things does not go well, I won't be surprised they might sign some players to kind of right the ship a little bit and get themselves back to playoff contention. It just, again, shows you that I don't think this is going to be a team that's going to miss the play of this season. I'll be shocked if they do with all the talent that they have in this team. But either way, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.